Hello, everybody. It's the American Doofus Show. I'm your host, Barry Welsh. Don't be a doofus. We're doing live super chats now. I'll be doing one tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, Friday night super chat. And you'll be able to, it makes it more interactive. We'll talk more about that tomorrow night. Also, we're going to be able to connect by membership. Going to be offering memberships and starts at the 3 different levels. And the first level, you'll be able to, there'll be member only chats, Q&As. There'll be members only videos. And the second stage, you can actually call into the show. And the third stage, you can actually co-host the show with me as well as everything else. So those 3 levels, and we'll be talking more about that. And you can co-host just like Dave Lackford is going to do tonight. We're bringing Dave back on, one of our most popular guests, the attorney from Louisville. And we're going to be talking about the Breonna Taylor case, currently in the hands of the grand jury. And that normally takes a couple of days, and it's been a little longer than that. So we're going to be talking with Dave Lackford. Dave, it is always a pleasure to have you on the show. Everybody always enjoys hearing the legal perspective on how things are going. How's it going with you?
Going well. How about yourself, Barry?
I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. So tomorrow could possibly be the day we've had the civil settlement, $12 million plus reforms. And one question that somebody asked me to ask you: does the civil settlement preclude the officers being civilly sued individually?
Well, that's a good question. So what you're talking about is, does the state or the city of Louisville, does that indemnify these officers individually from a suit, right?
Right.
So, Barry, I'll put it very simply to you. If you got hit by a TARC bus, okay, and you're the driver, I'd rather sue TARC than I'd rather sue the driver who is
Gotcha.
Barry. Because Barry, you only have so much money, right? But TARC has a bunch of money. So what you want to do when you sue somebody in a civil suit is you want to sue the deep pocket. That means the pocket you're going to be able to collect from. So I could sue TARC and I could sue you for driving the bus and hitting me, but I have to collect from both parties. It's much easier to collect from TARC than it is to collect from you. So
Gotcha.
I get the money real fast from TARC. They settle real fast. And then, but if I wanted to sue you, I'd have to probably garnish your wages. And if I'm asking TARC to fire you and you don't have a job, you probably don't have much income from which I can garnish your wages. Okay, so there's other ways to get the money. Perhaps you own a house. I could put a lien on your house, depending on how much the settlement was worth or how much the judgment from the jury is worth. And I could take your house and you'd be homeless, but that's not as much money as the government. So when you go back to these officers and you go back to the LMPD and you go back to the state and the city, you get more money from suing the LMPD and Jefferson County than you do from suing these individual actors, because they don't have as much money as the government does. Now, there was a $5 million insurance policy that a lot of that $12 million comes from. So that $5 million is automatically gone. That's the insurance. And then, you know, you can get $12 million from other places. But in order to get money from a civil suit, you have to be able to collect. So let's say, you know, you just want to sue the deep pocket,
Yeah.
So
Okay.
preclude them? Not necessarily. It depends on whether or not the county or the LMPD indemnified these officers individually. That means that the plaintiff, who would be Breonna Taylor's family, can't go after these officers on an individual basis because the county is paying the suit to them. However, that means the county can go after the officers, but they probably won't. Okay, so long-winded way of saying you want to sue the people that have the money, not the individual employees. So,
Okay. Now the criminal case.
yes.
We're expecting possibly tomorrow, since it's Friday, an announcement, a finding from the grand jury. If it goes bad, is it going to get bad in Louisville?
Well, let's talk about when the decision would come, if it's going
Okay.
to. We heard last week from the Courier Journal, and the last time we spoke, we talked about when these charges would be announced, right?
Right.
I said, take everything the media says when it comes to any kind of criminal proceeding with a couple grains of salt, right? So they said it would be announced this week, right? So let's look at all of the things that have happened since that time. There was a $12 million lawsuit, which is the biggest payout in a wrongful death case against the police here in Louisville. It's a landmark decision for a Black woman, okay, not necessarily a civilian who was killed by the cops, but for a Black woman, it was a very substantial amount. Some people are saying that it's the most money ever awarded to a Black woman. I haven't done my research on that, but that's what they're saying. $12 million.
I said that. I said that because I heard her attorney say that.
Right. So, I mean, $12 million is $12 million. How much money the family gets from that, how much money the attorney gets from that, it doesn't matter. The payout, the award, is $12 million. And like I said, they're suing the deep pocket. So they're probably going to be able to collect from that, right? So they're not going to have to worry about money ever again. Now, you can say what you want to say emotionally about you can't replace a life with a dollar amount. How much are your kids worth? We're not here to talk about that. Okay, that's I don't know. No, that's beyond the point. But they announced that, and with that settlement, there were other stipulations between the city and the plaintiff. Right. So the plaintiff was Breonna Taylor's estate or her family, and the defendant were the city of Louisville, the Jefferson County, okay? And they agreed that Louisville Metro Police Department is going to have to implement all of these new policies into what they do, right? So you have to get the squadron commander to sign off on a warrant. Okay, big whoop. You know, to me, it's no different than the judge signing off. If the police say, hey, we're doing this, we're going to take it to our commander, the commander's going to sign off, right? This isn't an outside agency. They're saying that there's going to be drug testing after a police-involved shooting. Cool. If I work at Ford and I wreck my forklift, they're going to piss test me. So that should have already been in place. There's numerous other things that are involved with that I don't really care about right now because we're not talking about that. But I think that they're still going to have to fight the union for that. I don't know how enforceable that is for the court to tell a union that you have to implement these specific policies based on this civil lawsuit, because I think the union has a voice there and say, you know what, we disagree. We appeal that. We appeal these stipulations. You get the $12 million, but we're appealing these certain things because we're a union and we have rights to that. So I don't think we've heard the last from that, okay? I think a lot of this is political. I think a lot of this is posturing. And I think they're posturing because I don't think we're going to return any charges against any of the police officers involved in the shooting. If there is anyone, and I've said this from day one, from the moment I looked at this case, I said there's only one person you could possibly charge, and that's Brent Hankison. And that's because of the way that he discharged his firearm during this search warrant. People say search warrant was for the wrong house. No, it wasn't. that search warrant had that address on it, in addition to a bunch of other addresses, because it was a dragnet, and that's how you serve a warrant. If you're taking down a syndicate, okay, and I'm not saying Breonna was part of this syndicate. I'm not saying Breonna was this integral part of this drug organization. That's not what I'm saying, okay? Ted Schaus, who was a esteemed defense attorney here in Louisville, he wrote an article for the Courier Journal who said, it's the girlfriend squeeze. So whenever you got a major player in a drug game, usually he's able to use his girlfriend as the bank or whatever it is. She has a very small role in this. It usually has something to do with keeping the money and bailing people out, right? But the cops will rush them and put her under pressure and get her to flip, get her to snitch on the main culprit that they're looking for, okay? So I'm not disparaging Breonna Taylor. I'm speaking the facts. And if the facts hurt your feelings, then you need to work on your mental constitution, okay? They had the right address to serve the warrant. Okay, she was a low impact target, however, so maybe they could have served the warrant at a different time, but that's not how it works. Okay, you hit everybody at once, so no one can communicate. No one
That's
can.
why I love having you on, because we learn so much every time you're on.
Right. I mean, you have to understand the way that the government works against people. You can say, is it worth it to kick in the door over some drugs? I would say no. I would say drugs aren't worth lives. I would say that people that use drugs of their own free will and accord. They decide that there's a market for that drug, whether it's legal or illegal, and they decide that that's their escape from whatever reality they have, and that's the marketplace for it, right? But the warrant, in and of itself, that was written, was valid. It was a valid warrant for her arrest, okay? So they kick the door, they take fire, okay? Mattingly is the first one through the door. Apparently Mattingly gets hit. Whose bullet hit Mattingly? Still, no one knows, right? But Walker did fire one shot. So they return fire. Mattingly gets struck in the leg. Maybe Hankinson hit Mattingly, because if you look at the diagram that Tom Wine drew in the New York Times production that was on Hulu, you could see that it's possible that Hankinson shot into that house and hit Hankinson in the leg, right?
Mattingly. Hit Mattingly in the leg.
Mattingly in the leg. Hankinson is outside, fires inside, to where if you're breaching the door and you take a few steps, it's possible that Hankinson's bullet hit Mattingly. Was that the case? We don't know. Okay, we'll find that out later. But so Mattingly's hit. He says in that thing that he scoots out, and Cosgrove steps up into his place and starts firing too. It's probable, based on the evidence that I understand, that either Cosgrove or Mattingly's bullets were the ones that killed Breonna Taylor. That's based on the factual evidence, okay? It has nothing to do with my feelings about any of this, okay? That's just the way the law works. Now, if you have a problem with the law, then address the law in whatever manner you feel necessary, but I'm talking about what's going to happen at the grand jury.
Okay.
Right? Cosgrove and Mattingly are taking the front door. Mattingly gets hit. He falls back. Cosgrove takes his spot, fires back. Those are probably the bullets that hit her. If you've seen the Hulu thing, The Life of Breonna Taylor, Tom Wine draws a diagram. Now, you could choose to accept Tom Wine's diagram or not. I'm going to accept Tom Wine's diagram for the purpose of this conversation, based upon what he said and also other facts that I have dealing with that case. Hankinson was on the side of this first floor condo, and he's firing into where Mattingly came through the threshold of the door. So it's possible he hit Mattingly. I looked up Hankinson's name on CourtNet today. I didn't find anything for him. If he had been charged by the grand jury, it's possible that it would have been entered by now, right? But if the grand jury was closed today, it probably wouldn't show up. But if it was earlier this week, it would have shown up, right?
Okay.
So he's the one who was fired, and in the charging document, the language that the LMPD used to fire him tracked the language of the wanton endangering statute. So if anything, he could be charged with a D felony. That hasn't happened. They awarded Breonna Taylor's family $12 million. They said that they're going to do all these things to reform the police department in this settlement agreement, and they announced it publicly. To me, that's all political posturing. Tara Bassett, she said the following thing on Instagram, and I trust Tara because she gets access where other people don't get access as far as the independent journalist.
Right.
This is what she posted on Instagram. She said, and I quote, Mayor Greg Fisher's office has confirmed the following. The Federal Protective Service, which is a branch of DHS, Department of Homeland Security, was asked by the U.S. Attorney to come to Louisville to protect the four federal buildings which are adjacent to each other. Snyder Courthouse, Mazzoli Building, U.S. Attorney's Office, and ICE Office. Now she's still quoting Greg Fisher. We, Mayor, Louisville Metro Government, LMPD, did not request them. I have requested clarification on this. And so Tara then editorializes and she says, I have requested clarification on the scope of their jurisdiction. Should someone feel it's necessary to request their help in other parts of the city? That's what we know. Okay, that's what Tara has reported. So Tara, however. Tara, I'm sorry, Tara. No disrespect. But so things look like they're trending towards these officers not being charged criminally. Okay. And that news, if the grand jury did wrap up this week, and I think that the announcement would probably come tomorrow afternoon during the news dump time. So if you're in news dump and there's any bad news you ever want to get rid of, you announce it at 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon when everybody's on the highway. Okay.
Right.
And I've been saying it for a while. I don't think Cosgrove, I don't think James, I don't think that Mattingly will be charged. And that's the way the law works. Okay. So people say, that's not justice. That's, you can say, and whatever your political views are, you can say this isn't part of the justice system or this isn't part of the legal system. You understand? There's a difference between a just result and a legal result. Okay? I'm not here to talk about that. I'm not Plato.
Right.
Okay? But under the law, which we operate in this country, I don't see anyone but Hankinson being charged. And if Hankinson is charged, it's going to be the lowest level felony possible, which is a D felony, which is a 1 to 5 year sentence. He's a police officer with no criminal history. There's good possibility that he gets probation and doesn't serve a day in prison.
Okay.
Now, do we think that that's going to lead to utter chaos and destruction in Louisville?
That was, yeah.
I don't want to say, I don't think so, because I think that there's been 100 days, 110 days.
114, 115.
I mean, it's actually been 6 months. March 13th is when Breonna was killed, and it didn't really light until the protest didn't really go out in full force until George Floyd was killed. Okay, so it kind of boomeranged that back out here into Louisville, and that's what we've seen. But I think that we've seen a placation from the government here in Louisville where they've awarded the mother $12 million, and you've included in that settlement a bunch of things that are significant police reform. Now, will they come to fruition? that remains to be seen. That's why I use the term placated. They've
Yeah.
And keep in mind, without the people out there in the square protesting, without these caravans, without these marches, without the looting, without everything that happened, the burning of things, I don't think this happens. I really don't. I think this was a movement of the people, and the politicians know who they serve. And I think this is kind of them throwing a bone out there on the civil side of things. Look, we are going to fix it, but legally,
Nothing's going to happen.
the way the law is written, the law is the law is the law.
Yeah.
Emotions don't matter. I'm sorry. If you feel like this is unjust, it may be, but through the legal procedure and through the statutes, I just can't see them charging them. And I'm not saying that I don't think what happened was wrong morally and ethically. I do. I feel your pain, but at the same time, I just don't see how legally they're going to charge anyone but Hankerson. And that's not going to be good enough for the people, but I think that the people have been out there long enough. They've preached restraint. They've preached to not hurt things. They've preached not to destroy their own city. They got pissed off when Grandmaster Jay said, "We're gonna burn this motherfucker down." But when Tamika Mallory came out there and all those people, they said nonviolence is the way to go. So, I think that if anything, you might see one night where things get a little unruly, but I don't see it escalating to the extent that it did late May, early June, those first
couple of nights.
days.
Yeah.
I think that there has been a period of healing. I think that strategically the government has known it's a war of attrition sometimes. You only have so much energy, right? And Saul Alinsky, who was a radical organizer back in from the 40s to the 70s, he said any action that drags on too long becomes a drag. And I think that the government knew that they are going to just stretch this out and they are going to watch the energy dissipate, the numbers decrease. And I just think that people want to put this behind them. And I think that the concessions made on the civil side of things are going to mitigate the rage of the people. Does that mean that there aren't going to be a hardcore group of folks who aren't going to want to tear things up? I don't know that ever, I don't think that you can ever
say that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I don't think you can say that's going to happen, but anytime that a football team wins a championship, there's jubilation, but there's people who are going to
turn over cars and set shit on fire.
They're going to loot. They're going to break stuff. They're going to wild out because that's just the chaotic nature of some people. So might there be some chaos? Sure. But I think that the people here who have had their eyes on the prize and their feet on the ground can really say, you know what? We've done enough to affect change here in Louisville.
Yeah.
Without really fucking shit up.
Yeah. And they have. They for 111 out of 115 days, it was peaceful. And you can't say that about anywhere else.
And I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. At the same time, if people's rage overflows and emotion overflows and people come out and tear shit up, that's what it is, at the end of the day, the government serves the people, and the laws only have the legitimacy that the people give the law. Okay, so it doesn't matter what you think sitting at home in your house and the troll comments that you say. The law is a social construct. There are malinhibita and mal in se crimes. Mal in se means bad in itself. That means like murder, rape, theft, things of that nature, right? Malin prohibita crimes are like you ran a stop sign, you sold some cocaine, you cut somebody off on the highway, and that's reckless driving, right? So the Malin say crimes, those are the big ones, you know, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. People really don't get too upset about that, right? But you want justice. When someone dies at the hands of another, you want justice, right? And if you kill somebody because of a Malin prohibita crime, which is you were selling drugs and he kicked your door and it killed you, people are going to be mad about that because you weren't even a drug dealer. You were a minor, even if you were a participant in this drug trafficking organization, you were the mail clerk of that organization and you got killed. So there's a Malin say crime that happened because you committed a Malin prohibita crime in your own home. And the Fourth Amendment is sacrosanct. You know, we're supposed to be secure in our own homes. So if people are filled with rage and they flood the street and they take to that level, they take it to that level of rage and rioting and violence, people have spoken. And that's what we are. We are for the people, by the people. So when the laws start to lose their meaning to the people, time to adjust the laws. But I think that what the government has done in Louisville so far, and I don't know how substantial this is going to be. I'm not saying that they've done some revolutionary thing here because it could all just be pandering. It could all just be lip service. We'll see in a year. I'm a defense attorney. I like the rules. I like what they're saying. They are revolutionary if they come to fruition. However, do we trust our politicians at this point? Do we trust them to invoke the will of the people and to put those into action, to manifest into action the ideas of the people? It appears that's what's happened through this civil suit, but only time will tell if we've been lied to again.
Yeah.
So I hope that's what the case. I hope we can trust our elected officials. I hope that democracy isn't just a farce. It's just not a shell game. You know, I hope that this really effectuates actual change, concrete change that becomes codified into our laws. But if it doesn't, we'll be back here again. But whenever the ruling comes out, and I've told you what I think it is, I want to give my faith in the people of Louisville who have been down at that square, who have been talking about nonviolent protest, who have been talking about this is what democracy looks like, who have been talking about let's not tarnish all the good work we've done so far. I hope that they play the smart game, okay? I hope that they don't resort to all-out anarchy and violence, because at the end of the day, they call in the tanks, they call in the guns, and I don't think that the point spread is going to be in favor of the people. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
That's my take on the whole situation.
All right, man. We'll have you on next week to see what happens. It still may be in the hands of the grand jury. We don't know.
Could be.
Could be. All right, man. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure having you on. Love you. See you soon.
Brother,
Hey,
love you.
Blackford. It's the American Doofus Show. I'm your host, Barry Welsh. Don't be a doofus. Thank you so much, as always, and thanks to Dave Blackford. Again, we're doing the membership thing. We'll talk more about that tomorrow night, Friday night, 9 p.m. live, American Doofus Show. Don't be a doofus.